Welcome to another episode of Leading People. I'm your host, Chitong from EngageRocket, the fastest growing people analytics tech company here in Southeast Asia. And in this series, as you know, we've been exploring different aspects of how leaders are navigating the current pandemic and economic situation to be able to extract insights and best practices from those at the top of their field. And today, I have the privilege of speaking to Ms. Rosaline Koo, founder and CEO of CXA Group. Now, CXA has 800,000 users across 20 countries in Asia and has received multiple awards, including InsurTech of the Year, Top CEO, Global Innovations in Healthcare, Asian Human Capital Leadership Awards, and many, many others. Rosaline herself, before this, grew Mercer and Marsh's benefits business in 14 APAC markets by over 800%. And she personally invested $5 million of her own capital and took a loan for another $5 million in order to start CXA Group. Very, very inspirational lady and leader, and very, very glad to have her here on this show. Welcome, Rosaline.
Hi, Chito. Pleasure to be here.
So maybe to get us started, how would you describe what CXA Group does, and how would you describe the role that you play in the organization as a CEO?
So I consider CXA an employee benefits company. And our job is to allow employees to actually tailor their benefit spend, the company-funded benefit spend, to their own lives and to their health needs. So someone young and healthy may want more fitness and not more treatment. Someone that's growing older may want something for their parents or for their kids. So we do tailor it. So my role is to come up with the vision of the company, get everyone on that same bus, and to steer the bus, right? And make sure that the bus does not crash. So I'm the bus driver.
The bus driver who does not crash.
Yes.
A great description for the role.
Yes.
So how do you, within this bus, how do you go about organizing your direct reports and your teams?
So I used to have way too many direct reports, over 20 something. And some of them I didn't even know. It's just whenever someone left, everyone reported to me. But now I have 7, and it's really good. So I have all the country and the function leaders, and that's it. And then we organize everyone under them. So now it's really manageable. It took me 7 years to get here.
Very, very productive 7 years to get to a team of 7.
Exactly.
That's incredible. And now let's talk about this pandemic, right? And
Sure.
and what changes have you seen or are you seeing in your work life, your day-to-day work, that have been caused by this pandemic?
So, of course, I no longer travel, which is really good. And face-to-face meetings stop almost completely. So especially external face-to-face meetings. I still have internal face-to-face meetings when we do need to. But the biggest change from the pandemic is that it actually helped my business, just unexpectedly. Because of the pandemic and my industry, the insurance industry discovered that no one wanted to see their agents face to face. No one wanted to walk into a bank branch, and most people didn't want to go into the hospital or a doctor's office, right? So the need for digital was really, really important. The need to think about healthcare and prevention and diseases and not catching a disease became top of mind. And because of the recession from the pandemic, the need for cost savings was instrumental. So we were in the right place at the right time. We actually built the technology that integrated a wallet to a whole ecosystem and took it online. So it accelerated my technology business, and we're growing this year. So many banks and insurance companies needed to go online. We were the only man standing. So we already built the tech so that banks can cross-sell their SMEs cheaper insurance and cheaper doctors, and we linked it all, as well as cheaper telemedicine, so you don't have to go see the doctor, delivery of the medicine, your health screening online, upload your medical records, and also getting healthy, because
Wow.
everyone thought about how to get healthy during the pandemic. So we were at the right place at the right time. And so the pandemic changed us. It hurt my face-to-face brokerage business, but it really helped my technology business because of the cost savings, because of the focus on health, and because we took banks and insurance companies online. So
Wow.
yeah, the pandemic helped a part of my business that I thought would take a long time, but it accelerated that part of my business.
That's an incredible success story. And just hearing how you've built that ecosystem where the banks and insurance companies win, the doctors win, the consumers of insurance win.
Yes.
And obviously as the main player in town, CXA Group wins as well. It's a wonderful ecosystem that you've built.
Yes, luckily things we were building for years just finally came to fruition. And we're alive, which is amazing.
That is amazing.
That's the most amazing part. We stayed alive, right? Staying alive is a big part of not crashing the bus.
That's almost half the battle sometimes.
Yes, yes, yes.
So you have these two, so I guess you have these two businesses, right? The kind of in-person brokerage business, and then
Yes.
the technology business. And uh, the assumption previously was that the technology business would take some time to scale, whereas the brokerage business was kind of like bringing in
The
the
bread and
bacon
butter.
and the bread and butter, right?
Yes,
And
exactly.
how, because of COVID and because this accelerated, what kind of changes did you end up seeing within the organization? Um, between these two kind of functions or business units?
Yeah, so it's a good question. So I was building the two separately, but because of COVID and the need to just get by with the essentials, because you can't afford anything else, I actually integrated the two businesses together and
Wow.
into each country. So I had all the countries go and sell these services in their country, not just to the HR, but to the largest banks that own insurance companies. So I forced the accountability into the country leaders, and the functions help develop the product, build the tech, but work through the contracts and the people issues. So I couldn't hire extra people during
Yeah,
COVID, right? Because you
yeah,
don't have the money, right? You
yeah,
have to cut any non-essential parts. So it forced us to integrate the businesses together, which is great.
yeah. It must have been quite a learning curve for those who are used to selling to HR, suddenly having to sell to banks and insurance companies.
Exactly,
Uh,
exactly.
how did you manage that transition? It's quite a big change for most businesses.
Yes, it wasn't a transition. We just had no
You
choice.
just did it.
Okay, you're coming with me to the meeting. Okay, you're in charge of this. Here's the handoff. So, yeah, out of necessity, if we were forced out of necessity to make some decisions that we didn't make before. Yeah,
Wow.
two separate business that got integrated into one, that got integrated into the countries. So their KPIs were not just selling to HR, but now also how are you doing on the distribution business where it's white label.
Right.
And then it
Wow.
also forced us to integrate the tech. So the tech we built for the HR business is what we use to pivot and evolve to a microservices platform for the banks.
Mm.
So we integrated the platforms too.
Wow. Yeah, I've said this before. That's very inspiring to me personally, as somebody else leading a technology company. The amount of change that you have to drive through the organization is non-trivial in such
It's
cases.
non-trivial and it's weekly, right? So it's weekly while you're just moving along at great speed and trying to stay alive.
Yeah,
And you have to keep everyone aligned.
exactly. exactly. And that can sometimes be very, very difficult to do.
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Let's talk about you as a people leader. Like how does
Mm,
your um, people management style help your team be more productive?
So I'm not a command and control person. We have to be aligned, but I am not a micromanager. So I believe in inspirational leadership, and really leading on the vision and the high strategic goals, and then just making sure we move in the same direction. So anyone that goes off too far, I've got to pull them back,
Yeah.
or if they completely disagree with the strategy and the vision, I just have to kick them off the bus,
Mm,
right? Because we have no time for the internal battles.
yeah.
So I hate politics. I hate bureaucracy. I hate poison.
Yeah.
So those are the things that I look to make sure we don't have in the firm.
Mm,
So I get rid of those. I am tough on those.
yeah. As you should be. And as a leader, what are the levers, like the management levers that you are, maybe I would say like your top three, right? Like whether it's like one-on-ones, management staff meetings, like how do you what do you think would be the three
Mm.
top like management levers that you personally deploy?
So the leadership meets every single week and in between just to make sure we align. But because we're completely codependent, right?
Mm,
There's only countries and functions. So everything has to work for us to even launch a client. Everything has to work for a country to function. The tech and the product has to work together with the people and the finance. So since we meet every week to update each other on every strategic initiative, we hold each other accountable.
mm,
It used to be me holding everyone accountable. That doesn't work. It can't be a hub and spoke. But if all these initiatives have to move in tandem, we kind of keep each other focused and aligned and accountable.
mm,
So that's worked a lot, is having aligned goals and strategies, and very frequent updates and alignment, and seeing where people need to jump in to help, to remove obstacles, or do we change some timelines, what moves.
mm,
But I find that in a small company, you can't afford any misalignment,
yeah.
right? So having leaders that really care and can work together well matters more than anything. Teamwork matters more than anything.
Yeah. And do you find yourself doing like skip level meetings? I mean, all the usual tools that people talk about, like town halls,
Yes.
one-on-ones with your teams, and so on.
Yeah. So the one-on-ones are as needed, but we talk so frequently because we're we have to be in sync.
Yeah.
We have town halls every quarter, and
Right.
also as needed, when we have
Right.
to do other things. So we try to communicate very frequently. Communications to me is key,
Yeah.
and making sure we're always in sync.
Yeah.
So that's necessary.
Okay. And are there any special things that you do to be able to encourage uh, a, a a high performing culture or a culture that you want to build within your team?
Um, I think we're fast moving no matter what, because we have
Mm,
a culture of deciding quickly,
mm,
right? So we don't let decisions linger. We don't have what big corporates have, which is analysis paralysis,
mm.
or send something to New York, it's like a black hole, right?
Yeah.
So because we have to move everything so quickly, we make fast decisions and we get rid of poor performers
Mm,
fairly quickly, especially if they're toxic people.
yeah.
So yeah, I think you have to make sure there's no one dragging down the organization, because it's unfair to everybody else.
Yep. Exactly. And for you, having managed teams for so long,
Mm.
are there any signs that that you look out for that would tell you if someone is kind of like on the bus, or if they're kind of like one leg off, and especially during this COVID time where you can't really meet people face to face?
Yes.
How do you get that gauge of that person?
So we have project managers for every giant client, every major strategic initiative. So we know fairly quickly if someone isn't pulling their weight.
Mm,
So it's because we have to have a pulse of the whole organization, because we're only doing the necessary. So we track everything. So I think if you measure what you want to manage, you actually know when someone goes off
mm,
fairly quickly. So that's when we focus on, okay, where's the obstacle or where is the bottleneck? So you know fairly quickly where the bottleneck is.
mm.
And then we confront it right away.
So taking a very data-driven approach to management that way, right?
Yeah, yeah. We have so many deadlines.
Yeah,
These firms who are our clients are measuring us every week.
yeah.
And so what we found during COVID is we've gotten better and better and better at execution.
Mm,
It's really looking at where are we faltering and what do we need to fix, and
mm,
making sure we have management attention on what needs to be fixed.
mm. And for you personally, I don't know whether you can share this, but how many dashboards do you personally look at like on a daily basis? Like there must be a lot really within the company.
So I finally assigned one PMO head, the project management office head. So he has all the different dashboards. So we would know if things go off.
Okay, so someone's
He's super organized. He's like a computer.
that's awesome. Um, okay, so maybe for yourself personally, as in your journey as a leader, right?
Mm,
What is one mistake you made in the past that you've learned from and have corrected effectively in your
yeah.
leadership style today?
So this was a huge lesson for me. Because in big corporations, you have these rainmakers, and sometimes they're kind of jerky, right? But in a
Mm,
big company, it doesn't really matter so much.
mm,
But when you join a startup and you bring these rainmakers into the firm, and they're great with clients, but internally they wreak havoc.
mm,
Right? They have the meeting outside of the meeting. They stir up trouble. They don't always agree, right?
mm,
They spread negativity. And so in a startup, I learned I have to deal with the brilliant rainmakers who are jerks to the organization. And I had to get rid of them.
mm,
And for a while in the beginning, I couldn't do it because I needed their revenues, right? A
mm.
startup only has revenues and costs.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'll only have costs
Yeah. Yeah.
and no revenues.
Yeah.
And so I finally learned I just have to cut those people out because I can't afford people who are toxic in a small firm. Even if they bring in all the revenues, I would just have to find another way to bring in revenues because good people leave
Mm,
if you have them around. And it's hard to have a high performing culture when you have poison that fester and that
mm.
negativity, right? That back talk and the back channel,
Yeah.
right? Inside the passive aggressive people who says yes to your face,
Mm,
but they're bad mouthing you and the whole leadership team behind the scenes. So
yeah.
that was such a hard learning because in a big company you can last with them around,
Yeah.
right? There are so many of those. You're used to the politics and the bureaucracy, but in a startup you can't afford that ever. And that
Yeah.
was such a hard learning for me. But we have a better culture and things work more smoothly because of it. So in a tiny company, you can't afford that. And so now we don't. We develop other people and we develop different sources of revenues.
Mm. Yeah, that's a really great point. Like getting rid of that cancer, right, in the organization.
Yes,
Sometimes you got to
cancer
cut it out.
spreads.
Yeah,
It spreads no matter what. Sometimes it's underground for a while, you don't know, but once it comes out, it spreads and people watch you. If
yeah,
I don't fix it, no one's fixing it, then that becomes acceptable behavior.
yeah. And then you become the problem because as a
I
leader,
am,
if you
yeah,
accept it.
then I would be the prom, right? So I was the prom. So I fixed my prom. And our leadership teams are so much better.
Mm,
And then people below that aren't fearful anymore. They're not being yelled at for all the wrong reasons.
that's great. That's such a great story and very very timely for people to hear, especially going through tough times like this. If you have leaders that don't care for their people,
Yeah,
it just magnifies the stress. It magnifies the disengagement. So much
exactly. There's already enough stress,
more.
right?
Yes, going
You
around.
don't want to work for like a bad, jerky guy, right?
Absolutely. Um, okay, I've got a few quick fire questions here,
Mm,
which is designed, just give short answers to them, but really just designed to get to know you better as a person and as a
mm.
leader. The first one here is, as a child, what did you want to be when you grew up?
So I always wanted to run things. So I thought, okay, I'll either run a grocery store or a hotel because it looks like you get to like run something and lead something. So I was never a leader, but that's what I wanted to do when I was young.
Very nice. Um, and what was the book or books that have most greatly influenced your life?
So one I read recently is called Ikigai, the
Right?
Japanese secret to a long and happy life. And I read it only because it's about people in the blue zones in Japan. And the reason I read it, because my mom said to me, I need to live long enough to see you succeed. And I told her, you're going to have to live to 100, right? Because you're 90 right now if you want to see me succeed. So I searched for books about the blue zone, what made them happy and live a long time.
Oh.
And so this book talks about a sense of purpose and living healthy and societal ties. And so I need my mom and me to do that so that we can live long enough to see me succeed.
That's really nice. For those of us who might not know what ikigai means, would you be able to summarize the concept very quickly?
Yeah, so Ikigai means you have this really strong sense of purpose in your life
Mm,
and you're really happy because you're very healthy and you're engaged very much with the community and with others so that you have a reason for living,
mm.
right? So this book talks all about how there's so many people in Japan in this one city who lives not to 100 but 110. And so and so how in the world do they do that? So
Ah,
that was important for me and my mother because it may be another 10 years before I succeed. She will be 100. We need the secrets to a long life.
yeah, that sounds like a book I should start reading as well. What is one thing on your bucket list that you'd like to do in the next 12 months?
So I want to have my family together in one place over the next 12 months. So not all of us are together. My kids got stuck in the US, my mother in the US.
All right.
And so how do we get everyone together in one place
Mm,
in the next year? I don't know how.
yeah. That,
Lockdowns everywhere.
plus the political situation in the US, you have no
It's
idea what's
crazy.
gonna.
Yeah, it's crazy.
November would tell all, I think.
Yes, yes. So I don't think I'll go there. So I want my kids
Yeah.
to come home here. I want my mom to come visit me here.
Yeah. Okay. And the last question, if you were going to give advice to a smart, driven, first-time manager who's just
Mm,
been given a team to manage for the first time, what kind of advice would you give them? And kind of part two to that question is there any advice that you think that they should ignore? Because there's a lot of bad advice going around.
yeah. So my first time I was a manager, I was 21. And so I thought I was supposed to be like the boss. So that's the wrong advice. Don't act like the boss, right? So I learned that it's not about me, right? As the boss, it's not about me. It's really about your team and what it takes to empower them, right? To bring out the best in them so that together as a team, you can achieve together. So when I was 21, I was focused on me. How am I going to be the boss, right? I'm supposed to know it all, right? Poof. So I learned a really hard lesson at 21, right? It's not about me.
It's a good age to learn hard lessons, I think. 21.
Yes, yes, yes. So I've been managing for almost 40 years.
Oh, and I think that's a great takeaway, actually. The best way to be the boss is to not be the boss,
Yeah,
or
or
not be
just
a boss.
it's just really focus on your team
Yeah,
and focus on the goals, right? And how do
yeah,
you bring out the best in each person to achieve these goals, right? So
yeah,
it's about the team. It's not about the boss, it's about the team.
yeah. That's great advice. Uh, Thank you very much, Rosaline. And everyone, this has been another episode of Leading People. And we've been speaking with Rosaline Koo, founder and CEO at CXA Group. I've been your host, Chitong from EngageRocket. And if you like this interview, please be sure to follow us on LinkedIn and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks very much, Rosaline.
Great.
And thank you all for
Thank
listening.
you.